Welcome aboard, man. Happy to do it. So thanks for joining us. And again, we'll start with a few quick hitters. Five good questions. Just give us a brief, kind of that 15-20 second answer right off the top, just to help people get to know you a little bit better before we get into the tough questions. So I know that you're a Hastings High School graduate, but this isn't the only community that you grew up in. Just give us a quick flyby about, kind of your hometowns, as it were, and what year you graduated as a Raider.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm excited about it. So I was born in St. Louis, and then we moved to Hastings when I was younger. I'm the smallest of, or youngest, I guess, I have an older brother, older sister. But we moved to Hastings when I was before kindergarten, and then because of my dad's job, we moved then to South Bend, Indiana, for about 5 years, and then out to Seattle for 3 years, and then moved back here to Hastings in seventh grade. So before middle school, I got to kind of travel around a little bit and see a little bit of the country, which was kind of a good experience.
Yeah, man. And so tell us a little bit more about that family unit, who you grew up with, siblings and parents, and how you fit into that group, what birth order, and I think you have a nickname you want to make sure everybody hears about too.
Yeah, that's right. I have an older sister who is somewhere like 5 years older, and I won't exactly say, so she won't be mad at me, but somewhere around 5 years older than I am. And then an older brother, Jessica, who actually still lives in Hastings. She works at the district office. And then I have an older brother, Luke, who is 2 to 3 years, depending on what what time of year it is. And he is married and lives in Eden Prairie. That nickname you were talking about, my sister always makes fun of me that I was the prince, because she always made fun that my mom would always treat me better than all the other ones, as they always say. The spoiled one is the youngest one, I guess, which I don't believe it, but that was the nickname, was the prince growing up. As whenever I'd come back to visit, everything, there was a party and everything, and so yeah, that was the nickname.
Love it. So tell us a little bit about, along the way there, kind of Indiana, Seattle specifically. What are your first sports memories as a young kid?
Yeah, I remember when I was my kind of earliest memory of hockey even was in Minnesota. This is, like I said, before kindergarten. I remember my dad used to flood our backyard, and I don't even know how old, 4 or 5 years old, something like that, 4 years old, and going out there. And I remember one time my brother was out there with his friends, and my mom wouldn't let me go out there because he was with his friends, and they wanted just a little bit of separation. I remember watching through the sliding glass door, crying that I couldn't go out and play hockey. But we went to Indiana, and it's interesting when you go around the country and how, growing up in Minnesota, how big hockey is, and you go to these other places, and we're in South Bend, Indiana, which is, obviously where Notre Dame is, and football is king there. And hockey, there is high school hockey, but it's not nearly as big. And there's high schools or youth sports and things like that. But as far as hockey goes, just not as big. But I grew up there playing some hockey and baseball. Didn't play any football or anything like that at that point. And then same thing when we moved out to Seattle. It's like, here we are again. We're in the big city of Seattle, and there's literally two hockey associations in the whole city of Seattle. So we had to drive 30 to 40 minutes to practice, and did a lot of homework in the car with my parents driving, and the light hanging around my neck so I could see my book and all that stuff. So we did a lot of that out there, but also, when I out there was lucky to be involved with, I ran track with my elementary school, and played volleyball we had a volleyball team for my elementary school that I played on. And did, just kind of some different sports that you just maybe wouldn't get to experience if you hadn't kind of moved around the country a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. What was your first job? If you had a job along the way as a high school kid or college kid, what was your first job?
I worked at for a construction company, Harris Construction. One of my best friends, Nick Harris, his dad had a construction company, and we worked at his job site, just basically picking up trash. Was our first. I'd ride my bike over to the construction site, and then we just clean up the construction site. But all it meant was just picking up trash.
There you go. And then tell us just three of your favorite things. Any favorites? It could be a favorite movie or a favorite time of the year, a favorite food. Just three favorites for Adam Welch.
Yeah, my favorite food probably is chicken parmesan. I think most people know that. Or chicken bacon ranch is another one that I get made fun of because I don't venture out too much when it comes to food. It's pretty simple. I know what I like, and so that's what I order. So I don't try a bunch of stuff. So if you ask most people, they'll probably say some form of chicken bacon ranch. But I like chicken parmesan also is one of my favorites. I love springtime. Especially when you get into 40-degree weather and you're used to the -20, it's 40-degree weather feels like 80. And that's my favorite time of year when everything's kind of melting and it's almost like a new year is happening in springtime. So I love that time of year. And then spending time with my family and my kids is in, kind of the big thing right now with, I got a 3 and a 5-year-old and, coming home and just being able to play with those guys and spend time with them and with my wife, Marissa is just, it's awesome.
Yeah, fantastic. I appreciate it. So a little flyby there to kind of get us going. I want to do a couple things. You're fun to talk to because you're checking a few different boxes. You're an alumni athlete who's had some awesome experiences as a Hastings Raider as a player, and of course now you're a teacher and a coach here at the high school. So you've got that perspective and that lens. And I want to spend time in both boxes. We'll kind of maybe even cycle back and forth a little bit, but let's maybe start with the current, and we'll work our way back to fill in the other parts of it later. But you're currently teaching math at the high school. You're the head boys hockey coach, assistant football coach. You're wearing a number of different hats, literally, in addition to all the things that are on your plate as a parent and a spouse. But when it comes to coaching specifically, why coach? Right? Why coach? What brings you to the game? Why do you do it?
I was lucky to have really good coaches growing up and throughout my careers, and the impact that coaches can have and the connection of bringing kids together. That's kind of one of the biggest things is just I had such a good experience that I want to do that for the kids that are growing up now, to have some of that same experience and have such a great time playing high school sports, and then something they can talk about the rest of their lives with their buddies, the guys that they played with. And so making that connection for the kids to recognize and realize that, that's kind of the big thing as far as coaching goes, is just how awesome it is to coach in a place like Hastings with the town that we have, but also then again for our kids to be able to recognize how cool it is to be with their buddies and to have such a good experience doing that.
Yeah. So when you talk about influences, I know you're talking about some coaches that you played for. I'm sure now as a coach, you've got other coaches that influence your coaching. Um, Tell us just a little bit about that, the people that have impacted you the most, either a mentor or someone you currently coach with in hockey or football or from another community. Just who are a couple of those coaching influences, and what is it that you're learning from them or taking away from them?
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky to be surrounded by people, coaches. And what I mean by that is, my dad has coached all the way up, not necessarily always coaching me, but he's coached a team or helped out with a team since I was little. And even after I graduated, he was still coaching. And then, my wife is the head girls tennis coach and the assistant boys coach. And didn't quite realize that right away how lucky I was, and then I was talking to my assistant coach, Matt Klein, who's like, he comes home from hockey and can't talk hockey. And so I get to come home and, kind of bounce some things off Marissa as a coach, and so lucky to be able to do that. And she loves talking hockey and talking sports and coaching in general. So just being able to kind of talk to all those different people, my dad and Marissa, and then also, you have, Coach Strain, our head football coach, is just being a part of his staff is just awesome because he has such a great perspective too, as far as what's important, as far as, for student athletes. And he is always, at any point during the year, it doesn't have to be football season, I can go up and talk to him and he's ready to talk too. So, you have those people, and then obviously yourself as well has been a big influence on me as far as the way that I coach and how I coach. And so, you kind of just find those people that you can talk to that have kind of similar experiences that are not necessarily in the room that you're in at the time. So they can get their own perspective on it and kind of point out some things that you're doing that you're probably like, oh man, I didn't see it that way. So that's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and when we think of coaching, there are a number of ways that we can define success, right? There, on the one hand, there's kind of the obvious competitive goal, right? We want to win. We like to win, right? We plan and prepare to, we celebrate it. And when we think of boys hockey in particular, the role that you have as a head coach, like you guys are on pace for, 60 wins over 3 years, section finals appearance last year. Many folks know that you're a repeat back-to-back, not only conference coach of the year, but a section coach of the year. And a lot of that gets tied into the team's performance. But yet people would probably also be interested to know that it's your coaching peers that are the ones that decide on those types of external awards. And they go far beyond just the on-ice performance. So tell us a little bit what your definition of success looks like, because we know the competitive outcome is there, right? That's the pursuit of performance excellence is one of the great parts of coaching, right? It gives you the opportunity to teach lessons and bring people together to be a part of something bigger than themselves. But when you look at the end of a season, or you look at a student graduating from the hockey or football program, what does success look like for you? How do you define it?
Yeah, during the year, as we're going along, we talk constantly about, it matters. It doesn't matter who we play; it matters how we play. And that's when you're in the season and you're kind of thinking about that part of it and how the success is. The score is the score, but if you're playing well, that's all you can really ask for. And so, when you talk about winning and things like that, that stuff is important. Like you said, is I'm just as much a competitor as anybody else, and the fact that I hate losing. I hate losing more than I like winning. It's kind of one of those things that I remember that specifically making that realization where it was like a relief to win because of how much I didn't like to lose. And then you kind of get into more of the in-depth part of coaching, and you recognize again what you want from your players is the guys to come back. That's been the coolest part in the last couple of years is how many guys have come back to watch our games, to say hi. That's kind of why you coach, is to try and build those relationships, the lasting relationships, and having guys know that they're kind of a part of something kind of cool. And it's not like that everywhere, where you get a town that you can to play for and your buddies that you play for. And so the success part of it is when you have your alumni games and how many guys are there playing the alumni game. And like I said, during the year, how many guys come back. And you mentioned the section finals last year and how many of the former players texting, saying good luck and things like that, and how cool that part is. That's kind of the reason why you coach, is just to have these guys, to build those relationships and have the guys realize how special it is to be a part of something like this.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's cool to hear you describe relationships, community, and like you talked about a few minutes ago, that kind of paying it back to the people that poured into you, or essentially paying it forward, right, to another generation of athletes to be able to get from that. When you think of where you sit now, tell us a little bit about your tenure. I'm trying to remember how many years as a coach in general, but then think of where you sit here today and where you started, right?
Mhm.
What's a lesson maybe you've learned that you know now as a more mature or practice coach that maybe you didn't appreciate or maybe didn't know when you first started coaching?
Yeah, this is my 6th year as a head coach. I coached for 3 years as an assistant coach prior to that in Hastings. And one of the big things I had to do is, when I took over as head coach, you kind of got to decide, okay, what kind of coach are you going to be? Are you going to be a yeller? Are you going to be a player's coach? What are you going to be if you don't have kind of a, because I'm still pretty young in my coaching career to kind of have an identity at that point. And so I coached at the beginning the way that I would want to be coached as a player, which was I got yelled at a lot because of just the times that we were in the way. And I actually didn't mind that. That's the way that I wanted to be pushed. I wanted to be challenged. And so that's how I kind of started coaching, and quickly realized that I would be done coaching if I continued to coach that way. So I had to make the realization that I want to coach differently than the way that I wanted to be coached, and kind of focus more on relationships and trying to build relationships with kids. And so that happened probably, whether it's coincidence or not. I mean, it was 2 years ago, in the summer prior to, our first kind of run of these good games, good teams. I mean, is that kind of decided that it's going to be more about relationships than it is about trying to really kind of yell at kids and push kids and that kind of thing. And the cool thing is when you can build those relationships, that's when you can really start pushing kids. That's what you realize. And so, I had to kind of realize that and go through that. And had I not gone through those first few years, then maybe I don't make that change. You know what I mean? As far as maybe I'm not where I am today. And so it's kind of one of those things that, okay, yeah, I wish I would have started that way, but maybe not going to be in the same spot then as I am today, is really appreciating and recognizing what needs to be done.
For sure. Well, coaching, in some ways, no different than playing or parenting, is a tough job, right? It's emotional, it's exhausting. It requires a lot of commitment. when you think of literally the routine in the season, for sure, we're dealing with essentially almost a second full-time job, right? You're dealing with 3, 4 hours a day on a practice day, and sometimes 5 or 6 hours a day on a game day, 6 days a week. When you talk about the planning and the communication and all the things that go on off the ice or off the field. Um, and so in the midst of all of that, right, when you try to balance home and work, and it's clearly an opt-in choice to coach. In the midst of all that, what's the best part for you? What's the most rewarding part of coaching?
It's good. It's a good question, because that's something you got to think about, right? Is not just necessarily, you could say, oh, well, winning is so important. And when you win, everything's better, but it's not necessarily true, right? I've been a part of teams that have won 6 games, and I've been a part of teams that have won 20 games. And, I've had the same problems, for both teams. And so, the best part about coaching, I think, is that when you get a group of guys that kind of buy in together, not necessarily for what I'm telling them or I'm selling them, but for each other. And you can just tell that in the locker room where, it's just as a different feeling in the locker room where before you even step in there, they're in there and they're a team and they're a family where they're joking around and everything. It's not like it's a divided place and all that stuff. And so, when you can get to a team to be that way and they can recognize that and they can feel that where they are, again, family. I know that sounds cliche but it's for a reason, right? That it is cliche, but it truly is that is such a great experience of having those kids, high school kids, that more so high school boys, showing the emotion for each other and things like that it's a cool thing.
Sure. So when you think about, the 7, 8, 9 year run as a coach, and I guess I'm thinking more hockey from your role as a head coach, but you certainly could choose football if you'd like. But um, give us just maybe a favorite memory or two. Maybe a particular game or a particular moment or a particular team or something that happened that just kind of resonates in your head. That when you think of this last stretch you've had, a couple fun ones. A couple moments that were like, yep, that was pretty rad.
Yeah. I mean, there's a kid, I think it was my first year coaching, maybe my second year being head coach. We had a kid named Peter Meyer that, as a 10th grader, we didn't really know much about him. And he was kind of to be honest, on the bubble of making the varsity JV team or getting cut. And, when we end up keeping him and thankfully end up keeping him. And then, as a senior, he turns into one of our better players that year. And it was just a ton of fun to see him grow as a player and how hard that he worked. And it's not like he was an all-state player or anything like that, but he was, one of our better players in the fact that he just worked really hard to get there. And how cool that was to be, he probably didn't even know that where he was, on our depth chart to now where he finished was just kind of a cool experience of, seeing that kind of the hard work pay off. That's one kind of cool thing. Those kinds of stories are so awesome. That's what high school sports are all about, is that you get those kinds of kids, is that, this is it for them, is they get to play a couple years of high school sports and then, they're done and they get to talk about it the rest of their life. But the kids that get to make the most out of what they got. We had another kid last year that I'll never forget this story, Griffin Wise, who was a senior that, we talked to him at the beginning of the year of, I honestly don't know how much you're going to play. Are you on board for that? Are you on board for just, when you get your chance, you get your chance? And he did a great job all year. And when his number was called, he did a good job. And, some of those games, like in the playoffs, he didn't play very much. And so we kind of would talk to him before games of, hey, listen, just want to let you know where you're at, is that today, we might be going 2 lines. And so your number may not be called, but if it is, be great. If it isn't, be great on the bench too and be a good teammate. And here we are, the section final games, and we're having that same exact talk with him and saying, all right, here we are again. You may not get a lot of time, but if your number's called, be great. And before we could finish it, he said, and if my number's not called, I'll be great on the bench too. And that was a really cool thing of him kind of understanding and buying in. And then the even better part is he got a couple shifts in the first period and ended up scoring to make it 2-0 at that point. And so it's kind of one of those things of perfect moments in sports where here's a kid that's just a great teammate and a great person, and then he gets paid off in the section finals.
Absolutely. Love it. And fortunately, you've got countless moments and memories like that. I know you're picking a couple because I put you on the spot, but I think they're good examples of what's happening kind of throughout the whole coaching journey for you. Well, you've got a long connection to athletics, right? In a cool way, a lengthy connection to Hastings. Let's step backwards a little bit and go back to your experience as a younger athlete. I'm thinking kind of middle school, high school, right? So before we get to the high school period in particular, let's maybe go kind of that sixth, seventh, eighth grade period. Tell us a little bit about what sports you were playing, what you were trying. I know a little bit about your background about you grew fast,
Yeah.
some of those type of things. But what was kind of that middle transition like sixth, seventh, eighth grade for athletics and your role in it?
Yeah. So in sixth grade, we still lived in Seattle. And so I was playing, like I said, playing hockey. I actually played school basketball as well. Was able to do that because of the timing wise. Ran track, played volleyball. I did as much sports as I could. I played flag football for 1 year. So I didn't play tackle football at all in sixth grade or even fifth grade. I didn't play any football. And then in seventh grade, we moved back here to Hastings, and that's middle school. And so then here's my first time playing tackle football, seventh grade, and hockey, and actually played basketball as well in middle school because it was right after school, and hockey was later in the day with practices and things like that. So seventh and eighth grade got to play both hockey and basketball at the time, which was awesome. Kind of got talked into playing basketball. I wasn't going to play in seventh and eighth grade, but got talked into it again. Like you said, I grew fast. I was 6 feet in seventh grade. So, of course, some of my now buddies were, hey, you got to play basketball, and so didn't mind doing. I love that. And actually, one of the cool things was in eighth grade, another hockey player came out, Johnny Schumann, who's also, another football player, obviously, that people know, came out and played basketball too. So it was kind of a cool thing of him recognizing, hey, wait a minute, I could play basketball and try something new. And his younger brother, again, is, of course, a good basketball player as well. So that was kind of cool of in that middle school time, is just being able to try a bunch of different stuff and having my parents be all right with, hey, whatever you want to do, let's do it, And so, and then of course played baseball as well in the springtime. And so I was really lucky when I moved back here in seventh grade, and the group that I got, my age group, was just a handful of guys, really good guys and really good athletes. And so we all played football together. Most of us played hockey, and we all played baseball together. And so we played all three sports together, and we're just like I said, it's just a really good group of guys.
Yeah. So a lot of sports sampling along the way, right? You're trying different
Yeah,
things. You're in different environments, and I think it's cool to hear that, like you said, even in what was over time became a primary sport for you in the winter with hockey, you still played basketball through eighth grade, and kind of
that's
doing
right.
multiple things. It's pretty cool. Um, so when we look at your high school journey in the late '90s, I'll set you up a little bit. I know that you were a 9-time letter winner between football, basketball, and baseball, right? So you're on the varsity as a 10th grader all the way across. Let's focus maybe just on that 10th grade year just for a second. And you don't have to necessarily take them all in order, but just in general, what the heck was it like being a varsity athlete in 10th grade? And I know it was different a little bit from sport to sport based on your ability in the group, but that's a leap that not a lot of kids get a chance to make. What was it like for you at that stage?
Yeah, I was really lucky in my 10th grade year. Again, obviously with my size, allowed me to have some success at it with some older kids and things like that. But not just that. I think about this. So my ninth grade year is kind of just like it's always been. You play with your buddies, and then obviously going into your 10th grade year, school hasn't even started. Playing football. Yep, I'm playing 10th grade football is kind of what my mindset was. I had no thoughts of even playing varsity. It wasn't even on my radar. And then the next thing I know, the following week, I'm practicing varsity with, one other 10th grader. And it was kind of a weird feeling of like, okay, am I supposed to be here kind of a thing? And then as practice went on and everything, I was so lucky to be a part of that team. That's the team that went to the state championship game and lost to Cretin and Joe Mauer at quarterback. But the thing that I was lucky with is I started maybe 2 games, played a little bit here and there, is that we had a senior group that was just amazing with, Josh McClay and Adam Gerlach and Matt Vanderbosch and Joe Stewart and all of these guys that are just phenomenal athletes that were part of something pretty special in Hastings as far as the number of state championship games, not just states that they went to, but state championship games that they went to. So as a 10th grader, never even hanging out with these guys before in my life, right? And knowing the type of athletes that they are, really kind of set the tempo for me as an athlete, in the fact that it kind of realized, hey, if I want to have real success, then how hard you got to work, because they put the work in. All of those guys were just really hard workers, and so it kind of opened my eyes to what I need to do to have success as an athlete, to be around those guys. And then the other part of it that, partway through the year as I'm starting. So I was a backup to Adam Gerlach, who was a, 3-time All-State in 3 sports, and so, and then I also backed up Josh McClay, who is, an All-American wrestler, right? And so what ended up happening is the guy inside got hurt, and so Josh moved to inside. So I'm starting at outside linebacker, and those guys again just kind of took me in. And when you start to kind of like, it just gives you confidence to be accepted by a group of athletes like that. And again, they showed me how hard I need to work, and I bought into that, which is all part of that. But again, to have those guys kind of just take me in was amazing. And I will never forget this. My first game starting, I'm out on the field. Here I am, a 10th grader, not really, kind of head in the clouds kind of a thing. And our corner, who is Jim Gunderson, he's the head coach at Holy Angels State Championship. Holy Angels, I think 2 years ago they won. He's looking at, are you ready for this? And I'm like, oh, why is he yelling at me? That kind of a thing. But it was just the intensity that he played with and our other guys played with. And again, that set me on a path for success in high school and beyond, of, again, showing how hard you needed to work to have success. And so very lucky there to be a part of that group and to see what I needed to do. And then in hockey, my sophomore year, again, one of those things, I didn't know where it was going to be. They're just coming off of losing in the state finals, and they had a great senior group that just all graduated. So I was kind of lucky and fortunate in that there was a lot of open spots. Otherwise I probably don't make that team if I'm a year older, with how good that senior group is. And so I was, again, a young, didn't need a lot of attention. So kind of one of those things that I was a really good underclassman as far as a player goes, because I played my role in the fact that I didn't need a lot of points. I took pride in breaking the puck out and, stopping people from scoring. And so, now as a coach, it's like, you're always looking for guys like that. And I didn't quite realize that, you're just out there playing and trying to make the lineup any way you can. And then, so was fortunate enough to play regular shift my sophomore year and making it to the state tournament. And then in baseball too, I think just kind of carried over my size and playing varsity and things like that. I did not actually play very much my varsity or my sophomore year on baseball. Had a pretty good group still. They just came off from winning the state championship. And so, learned a lot as far as how to be a bench player, which kind of sounds funny, but that's basically, and I did it through a lot of mistakes, by the way, of, messing around or not paying attention and then getting called in to pinch run and then get thrown out or, things like that. And so it was just a way for me to be able to learn again, to be a better all around person, was through that. Although I didn't know it at the time, complained a lot about not playing, of course, to myself and to my parents, but that's again, what it was teaching me at that point there. But my 10th grade year, like I said, that football season really kind of put me on the right path of being the athlete that I needed to be.
Right on. So then you've got this, pretty awesome entryway, different kinds of experiences on the field, off the field, playing a lot, not playing as much in others. But you've got this modeling happening for you, right? Upperclassmen and coaches. So, I think a fair argument can be made that you had just about as much team and individual success combined during your junior and senior year as almost any athlete that's had a chance to come through here. And you have to correct me, I think we're talking like the 99, 2000, and 2000, 2001 school years. Yep. So, in that high school varsity run, you're all state in a couple sports. I think you played in 5 state tournaments across 2 sports. Man, when you think of that, can you give us just a little glimpse? Walk us through it just briefly, right? I mean, what games kind of stick out to you? Kind of where, between football, hockey, baseball, is there a game or two that sticks out as really most memorable, or is there a particular run that a team made one of those years that really kind of captures your attention to this day? What are your biggest takeaways from those 2 years? There's so much to unpack. It would take us an hour. So I'm kind of asking you for a couple of the high ones.
Yeah, we, in football, we had our program at the time was really good. And like you talked about, we just lost in the state championship game my sophomore year. Here we are my junior year, and we weren't really sure. We lost a lot of seniors, the guys that we counted on. And so we weren't really sure what we were going to have. Now, we knew growing up that our class and the class above us had pretty good athletes. So we knew we had kind of a chance, but we didn't know how good, right? And so it was kind of a weird year in the fact that we were just playing and winning games. And, it was one of those things that it's funny at the time, you are expecting to go to the state tournament and you're expecting to go play in the Metrodome. And so when it happened, it wasn't like it was a big shock. It wasn't a surprise. And then you're in the semifinals against Eden Prairie, who was by far the best team. And, you look up and we were beating them in the fourth quarter. And I didn't even really realize that until the next year when our coach was talking about that. I mean, they were dominating the game and we had no right to even be in it. But I mean, that's how close we were to upsetting that team, is that it's in the fourth quarter and we're winning by 3 or whatever it is. And then, they took over in the fourth, but we don't have to talk about that part. But, so that part of it. And then again, that just set us up for my senior year in football of having a belief of that it didn't matter where we were at or at any point during the year, we were just trying to win the next game. Right. And we had a belief that we could win the next game. And that championship, team, the team that we won the state championship with is, we started the year 2-2. We lost our first game at home and we went on the road, we won. And then, so we're like, okay, now we're rolling. We lost our next game. So we were maybe we won 2 in a row and then we lost one to go 2-2. And we were kind of, as captains, talking about where are we? What kind of team are we? And that kind of thing. And so we had a players only meeting before practice one day and kind of just talked to the team of, listen, I know we're 2-2, but we have a chance to still win the conference. We have a good enough team that we have a chance to win the section finals. And then who knows what happens at that point. And so at that point, then we went on a run and a lot of things happened in that year that was pretty special and a lot of fun. One of the games that probably my favorite game playing football ever was in the state quarterfinals. We played Eden Prairie again. And back then how they decided, you just flip-flop sections on who got to play at home. And so it happened to be our home game. So we're playing Eden Prairie, who's the number 1 team in the state at home. And again, going to that game, it wasn't like we were intimidated or anything. We had felt like, we were going to win. And I remember in the third quarter, like halfway through the third quarter, we were dominating the game. I mean, I think the final score was like 28-10 or 28-14 or something like that. But we got stopped on 4th and goal from the 1 yard line. We got stopped on 4th down inside their 20-yard line. They got a late touchdown to make it 28-14. But I remember halfway through the third quarter, you're kind of looking around being like, oh my gosh, like this is going to happen. Like we're going to beat these guys. And then you look, you don't usually do this, but you glance up in the crowd and it's packed stands on both sides. There's 3 deep around the fences. It was the most people I've ever seen at Todd Field. And it was a lot of fun in the fact that the way that we played was everybody was just on the same page and everybody played really, really well. And part of that was the game, 2 games before, this is kind of when we just took off, was we played Tartan, who was a really good team. And we just blew them out. It was like something just clicked and we just started playing at a different level. And so then that's what that gave us that confidence going into that. And that game, I think, was probably my most fun time playing football, was just because it was everybody playing really. It wasn't just one guy that just dominated. It was everybody, which was awesome.
Funny 12, story. Real quick, 12 team state championships for the high school over the course of our, existence, as it were.
Yeah.
And that team is arguably one of the most memorable, right? Again, football has a different profile. We recognize that. It's not to diminish another team state championship or anything like that. But it does stick out for a lot of people, partly because of the era and some of those landmarks that you just talked about. It's quite a journey for sure. How about on the ice, right? So the transition, you got the winter season over the course of those couple of years. Again, what sticks out to you? Maybe a particular game or a stretch or a tournament run that.
Yeah. Real quick though about that state championship team. That was a quick story about that is that, so that year we really started to watch film. My previous years, we'd get the film and we just have pizza and put it on. We won't really watch. But that year, I had Tom Desatel and John Majeski and Nick Harris. John Majeski and Tom Desatel go and play Division I football. And Nick Harris plays Division III hockey. All of us were in the secondary. And so we really watched film that year. It was the first year we kind of bought into that. And we usually do it at my house. And so my dad would actually watch film with us. Not that he would have a lot of input, although maybe if you ask him, he would say he did, but he would sit and watch with us. Right. And so we had kind of a good connection with that. And so before every game, me and him would kind of talk, and he'd be like, okay, how do you think it's going to go? And I'd tell him, okay, I think we need to do this. And he's, we kind of go back and forth. And so before every game, all through the season, all through the playoffs, same conversation as I'm getting ready to go to the high school, right? So here comes the state championship game. I got in my head everything that I'm going to say to him. I got my speech that he's going to ask me, how do you think it's going to go, and all this stuff. And he comes up to me and he says, I'm living my life through you, so don't mess this up for me. And it was kind of the perfect thing, because again, I got all the nerves going. And so I just start laughing, and just the nerves melted away. And, he's joking, half joking, right? Obviously there's a lot of parents that have that, where they just want, that success for their kids. And so it's a great story in the fact that, again, he just knew what to say at the right time to kind of make me feel better and more comfortable.
Oh, I'm glad you added that in. That's a good one.
Yeah.
We gotta, But then as a segue, you named a couple guys that you then skated with, right? John and Nick, and
and then we go to
tackle that one.
Go to the ice, and you have guys like Johnny Schumann again, who's our quarterback of that team, Nick Harris, John Majeski, my sophomore and junior year, we had a lot of success, and we had some good guys and good teams. We had 3 groups of kids. My junior year, we had seniors that were good and sophomores that were good, and so we had a good group of all ages. I think we had, my junior year, we had, I think, 4 freshmen or 10th graders that were starting, including a goalie. And so usually when you get that kind of group, you have a pretty good team. And it was interesting, my sophomore year, again, here we are in the section finals, and I'm expecting, of course we're going to go to state. We always go to state, which little did I know is not true. You know what I mean? It was just, that was kind of the era we were in. And we were down a goal with a minute left. And funny story about that too is, which I'll never live down, is that we get to the rink, which is the old fairgrounds. This is my sophomore year state section championship game, and I forgot my skates. I took them out to get them sharpened. I left them in the backseat of my car. And so I was, Russ wasn't very happy with me trying to figure that out. Luckily, Sliv McGree had an old pair of Jeff Tafe skates in the back of his car, so I wore his in the section finals. I remember a minute left, we're down a goal, and I'm really down on myself, thinking like, here I am, this is the last game of the year, and I don't have my skates on. I can't even make up for forgetting my skates or anything like that. And sure enough, Adam Gerlach ties it right off the face-off, and Travis Kiefer scores in overtime to go to the state tournament, which is kind of was a wake-up call that you just don't go to the state tournament every year, right? And that it has to be earned. And so lucky again, we got to go there. Quarterfinals, we're playing Bloomington Jefferson, who's really good team, really good program, and getting outplayed, but we're hanging in there, and we're tied, and we go to overtime, and somehow I score the game-winning goal in overtime, which is again another highlight. That's one of those, the state tournament where everybody's watching, right? And somehow the puck goes in. It wasn't a great shot, but it went in, and that was a ton of fun there. That's kind of where I learned, and we tell our guys this all the time, that on the score sheet, they make little tiny boxes next to your name to see who scores, so they can't write the description of the goal. They just put a little 1 next to your name. That's all that happens. And so doesn't matter how pretty it is, right? And so that was a lot of fun, being able to be a part of that, the state tournament. My junior year, we had a good team. Like I talked about, it was probably our best team out of the 3 years that I played. We beat Cretin in the section finals, which was a ton of fun, always beating those guys. And actually not in dramatic form. I mean, we beat them, I think, by 3 with an empty netter. So that was kind of fun to experience it that way too, of not having the drama of overtime. And then we went up to the finals, or went up to the state tournament again, and we took 4th, winning again in the quarterfinals, which is always a big deal, because if you lose in the quarterfinals, then you go to Mariucci to play the rest of the tournament. If you win in the quarterfinals, you stay at the Excel Center the rest of the tournament. Right. And so was named all tournament team that year, which was kind of a big thing for me, of the fact that kind of get recognition statewide. You know what I mean? It's the first time statewide I got kind of recognition for hockey, because I'm again not a flashy player, so you don't get noticed a lot when that happens. And for better or worse, there I don't know if it was a good thing or bad thing, but I got noticed. Or, I mean, I got to the all tournament team, but then my senior year did not have a good senior year. I think my ego kind of got in the way of, I thought all of a sudden now I was going to be the one that it's my senior year. I'm going to score the goals. I'm going to be on the
Sure.
power play, even though that's not the type of player that I was. And so did not have a good senior year of hockey personally. Still had a blast, still had a ton of fun playing. But again, as far as the way that I played, and again, I reflect on that a lot. And the way that I handled myself was, again, I was more worried about me than I was about how our team was doing and things like that, which is really unfortunate.
Well, there's a balance to be struck there. And I think when you talk about, that individual recognition from your junior year, part of that reward is that you think of the investment and the work ethic that you made along the way, right, to develop.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think you've mentioned before, I mean, when you were in sixth, seventh grade, correct me, I mean, you weren't always on the A team either. I mean,
No,
you had to grind to get there. And so there's part of that where it's okay to be proud of that. But yet you're right, there's a delicate balance, and we all kind of have to learn how to do that.
yeah, and that's absolutely correct. I mean, I didn't make an A team until I was in seventh grade, and that's in Indiana and in Seattle, and so I always had to kind of work to get to where I was, and so it was something I had to learn how to do, was balance when you all of a sudden now do have the recognition, and I had not had to do that before because I
Sure.
wasn't ever really the guy that got recognized, and I was okay with that. But it was just now all
Yeah.
of a sudden you are getting recognized, and again, those are all learning experiences of who you are as a player and as a person,
Yeah,
and
absolutely. So when you think of that journey as a high school athlete, tell us what was your improvement process like, or what was your training like, or how did you get better? I mean, playing three sports doesn't really give you a whole heck of a lot of time to do anything, kind of off the court, as it were. And that's part of the answer, is playing other sports. But how did you get better? What was your improvement process like from year to year?
Yeah. So again, my sophomore year playing football, I was really lucky to be with that group to show you how hard you had to work. And so really I started lifting back in eighth grade, but didn't really start taking it serious until probably my 10th grade year, before, ninth, 10th grade year. And so we did the Raiders Express, all of that stuff. I would play hockey in the summer too, as part of some of those select teams like Minnesota Blades. I played with those guys, things like that. So I would play some a little bit in the summer and things like that. Didn't do a lot of camps or anything like that, but it was more of work during the summer, as far as trying to get bigger and stronger. And then the other part is, during hockey season, I would shoot pucks a lot. That was kind of the big thing for us, is that stick handle and shoot pucks. When I was fortunate when we built our house here in Minnesota, that my parents didn't finish the basement with that in mind, of putting up a tarp so that you could shoot pucks. So I was so lucky to have them to be able to help me with anything that I needed to. They didn't do it for me, but they would give me the opportunity to be able to do those things. And so shot a lot of pucks, stick handled a lot. I remember having conversations with myself of, man, I don't really feel like shooting pucks today. And I bet so-and-so is not shooting pucks today. And then kind of having the realization that, what, they don't have the same goals as I do. They don't want to go do the same things that I want to do. And so then I would get up and shoot pucks and things like that. And I think that's an important thing for a lot of kids to remember, is that, sure, there's a lot of kids that get by in high school that don't do the things they're supposed to do, but they may not have the same goals. And a saying that I've learned later on as a coach here is, the best way to get what you want is to deserve it. And it doesn't mean you're going to get it, but it's the best way to do it is to deserve that whatever it is that you're looking to do. And so, like I said, I remember having that conversation with myself of, so-and-so, who's all conference probably isn't doing this, but then also recognizing that they were probably done playing hockey in a year or so.
Sure.
And so that was a big part of it, is just shooting pucks, stick handle, that kind of a stuff. And then I also started to do push-ups and sit-ups and things like that at night as well. This has started probably my 10th grade year. I started doing that. Every single night I would do 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, and try to build that up if I could. And then, looking back, you always think like, oh, I was the hardest worker, and knowing that you probably weren't, right? You were probably lazy at times and things like that. But again, really good group of guys like Nick Harrison Schumann, and Tim McNamara is another guy that played hockey and golf, and who would come to my house to shoot pucks. So I would be at my house sitting there, and they'd show up with their stick and glove and say, hey, let's shoot some pucks. And said, okay. so it made it very easy for me to go downstairs and shoot pucks with them. So they made that effort to come over and shoot those pucks, which was awesome and a lot of fun to have a group of guys like that to help push you.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a chance to it when you think of that kind of last high school question. Just people and influences. I know there's far more than you could list on one podcast interview, right? And it
Mhm.
always feels like when you name one or two people, you forget 9 or 10 other ones. But it's still okay to pick off a few. When you think of just most influential teammates or most influential coaches along the entire ride, third grade, eighth grade, 12th grade, who would you name? Who are those most influential people that have kind of carried you through?
Yeah, Nick Harris is a big one, just because we played football, hockey, baseball together. And again, he would always come to my house and we'd always kind of push each other and compete against each other. And, he went and played in the USHL after high school and then played at St. Thomas. Another one, Tim McNamara, like I mentioned, those two guys, again, were guys that really helped me push myself. And the one thing I always respect about Tim was he's a guy that, again, did not make the A team growing up. He wasn't on varsity his sophomore year. He was on JV partly his junior year, then varsity, but continued to work and then went to St. Mary's and played there and was a captain there. And so he always he's another guy that I just have so much respect for. And consequently, those two guys, the best men at my wedding, right? And they're still, my good friends today.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best parts about high school sports is having those kinds of guys that help you along the way when you're, feeling tired and not wanting to do those things. And then, again, lucky to have three high school Hall of Fame coaches in Bob Majeski and Doc Loudon and Russ Welch. And the fact that, again, how lucky you are to be able to have an experience like that with coaches like that, because not everybody gets those. And you don't realize that until later on, of
Sure.
course. But, very lucky to have that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you graduate, um, you do end up playing Division I hockey, but walk us through the journey a little bit, because I know that wasn't a straight line for you. You kind of had to make some decisions and grind your way through. But just walk us through in a minute or two what that post high school, what that was like for you.
Yeah, when I graduated high school, I didn't know where I was going at that time. I was after high school or after, I guess, yeah, the all night grad party. I left the all night grad party early to drive over to Green Bay to go try out for the USHL team. And I ended up trying out for 4 different USHL teams and got cut by all 4 teams, which was just another experience of humbling experience of where you're at. And then the other part of that is Nick Harris was coming with me and he made one of those teams. Here's a buddy of mine that we've played together and worked hard with each other. And then he makes one of those teams. And so again, it's another humbling experience that I'm happy for him. But obviously I'm bummed for myself that I get cut by 4 teams and then finally make one in what was actually the American West Hockey League at the time, which then got bought up by the North American League down in Texas. I played down in Wichita Falls. And so very lucky to be able to get on with that team. And the coaches I had there were just amazing. But again, here's my parents who it costs money to try out for these teams. And knowing I probably have an outside shot at making those, wanted to exhaust every opportunity that I could to be able to make a team just in case, just to be able to track or run that down. And so how lucky I was for them to be able to help me to be able to try out for all of these teams. And so like I said, made it to Wichita Falls, and it was such a great experience. My coaches there, Brian Meisner and Mike Perkins, were 2 young guys. And it's your first time away from home. I'm living with another family, and we're playing 70 games. So we're on the bus a lot, especially in Texas, where you got to travel the whole country. And it was just such a great experience for me to be with that. And again, fortunate to be with those guys, because I've heard a lot of stories about coaches and juniors that are not good people, and they were really good people. And that experience there was just an amazing time and helped me develop as a player. Again, looking back now, reflecting, if you would have came and watched me as a high school senior, you would have said, no way, this kid's playing Division I hockey. Not that I didn't have the ability to, but just the way that I was playing. And then I go to this team where I'm playing 70 games and practicing every day and all that stuff. And something just clicked in the way that I needed to play, and started to have some success again there, which was, again, lucky to have those coaches there. But the one thing about those two coaches, we played 70 games a year, and every game they made you feel like it mattered. The amount of energy that they brought and the intensity that they brought. And my second year, it even amplified in the fact that not a lot of people know this. I was captain my second year of juniors, and this is the only reason I know this story, is that I had more of a personal relationship with our coach, our head coach, who had gout at the time and was allergic to the medicine. And so he would get flare-ups to the point where he couldn't come out to practice. He couldn't fit his feet in his skates, and he's in a lot of pain and all that stuff. But I was one of the few players that knew that because of the relationship I had with him. And not a lot of our guys even knew that. That's the way he kind of lived his life, is he didn't want it to be a big deal to the team. And so you kind of learn that from those guys, of that, things may not be going very well for you at the time, but you got a job to do and you got to go do that job to the best you can. And so it was a cool experience, and I'm lucky that I got to go down there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it's I always like to spend the last few minutes just tapping into just additional words of wisdom, piece of advice. And you've had these awesome experiences as a player, as a coach. You're a parent of a couple of young ones, but you've got all these different influences. So I'm going to give you a couple different stakeholder groups and just ask you to open up just any words of wisdom or pieces of advice you might leave those listener groups with, right? So when we have these podcasts out, we know that we always have parents that will listen in. So if you could give any words of wisdom, piece of advice or two to sports parents, right? They're listening and they've got a 7th grader, they've got an 11th grader. What would you tell them?
I would tell them again to enjoy watching your kid play. It doesn't last for very long. To make sure you enjoy it. Obviously, you want to try and give them as much opportunity as they want, or as much opportunity as they can have. But they also got to kind of show you something too, right? So there's a lot of times where parents are signing their kids up for this and that, and you're going to do this, and the kids don't even want to do it. And so you got to make sure that you want to give them the opportunity, but you can't necessarily force them to do as much if they don't want it. And maybe that's a little bit when they get older into high school and things like that. But the biggest thing though is just to enjoy watching their kids play, because it doesn't last very long, and not very many kids get to play after high school. Right. So it's very, very fortunate for the kids that do, and the parents that get to go watch them play after high school. But it's one of those things that you got a high school senior, and I've heard it from a bunch of parents, and you got a high school senior, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll go to games next year and watch. And then you never see them again. And I don't blame them, but it just is, that's what happens, is you just lose that interest when your son or daughter is off the team.
Yeah. Well said. How about for coaches, right? You got a lot of colleagues, some that well, a lot of younger coaches that maybe you're not connected with seasonally or anything like that, but coaches are listening. Same question, words of wisdom, piece of advice for just other coaches.
You got to figure out who you are as a person and what kind of coach you want to be. You can't pretend to be something, right? So like I talked about earlier on, that when I first started coaching, was trying to decide what type of coach I was. And the myth is you can't decide. You are who you are. And the sooner you can figure out who you are, the better coach you're going to become. And so when you can figure out that and you can be comfortable with who you are, then that's when the real connection starts happening, as far as with your players and things like that. So try to figure out who you are as a coach and type of person that you are, so that you can, get the most out of coaching.
Love it. And then last group would be student athletes themselves, right? So you got an athlete listening in that's maybe in 9th, 10th grade, maybe 11th, 12th grade. Words of wisdom for them. What would you tell those student athletes?
Again, enjoy every moment of what you got here, right? Because it's a special thing to be able to play in Hastings, to play in a town that supports high school sports, to play with your buddies. I didn't recognize that, didn't realize that. I mean, I enjoyed every minute of what I did, but didn't realize how special it really was until I went to college. And my roommate, who's from Canada, left home as an 8th grader and was playing on junior teams and didn't have a town and doesn't have high school buddies and things like that. And so how special and how cool it is to be able to play somewhere like this. And then don't take it for granted. Quick story here about when I was in college is I tell our hockey guys this all the time is, here I am, a senior captain in college, and start the year off horribly, playing horribly. Again, priorities not in the right spot. And I get healthy scratched as a senior, and as a senior captain, get healthy scratched And it was the best thing that ever happened to me because, again, set my priorities straight, made me appreciate that I'm getting to play college hockey. And so how quickly that can, slip from you if you don't have a focus of that. So again, appreciate where you're at and appreciate and enjoy every minute of that you get to play with your buddies and play something special.
Hey, we're going to wrap it on that one. Really appreciate your time walking us through some great stories, great takeaways. And again, I thank you for doing it, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.